Welcome back to another episode of Out of Bounds on the Boomer Bust channel. I'm your host, Terry, and today we're going to talk about Jonathan Majors. So again, this is Out of Bounds. It's not the canon. We're not going to really get into the whole movie aspect part of it. I guess I could, but that's not really where my mind is. Also, I shouldn't have to say this, but this isn't a law channel, so I'm not giving expert opinions on the law. This is, I'm not an expert, I'm not trained. This is just my thought process and my opinions. So let's get into the discussion because I think it's an important discussion and it's obviously a topic in our social atmosphere right now. So I think these conversations become so hot, heated, and interesting and popular because obviously when we have an intersection between gender and race, there's just a lot of angles for people to enter the conversation in. So I'm gonna start off with this because this is what really has been irking me. I'm a black man. Obviously, I've talked about these issues before. And if you listen to the channel, you listen to me and other stuff, you know that issues of race, racism, discrimination, all those different things are very important to me. So with that being said, this does not, I wouldn't say have anything to do because it's always a thing, but this situation is removed so far from the racial discussion in comparison to other situations, I'll say. Much like Deshaun Watson when he was going through his thing, and there was so many people that wanted to pull that out. Boom, black man, that's why this is in this, that's why. No, it's not. And the thing is, again, I don't have any issue with interrogating the situation, any situation, especially legal ones, for racism, but there comes a point in a situation where you have enough evidence to realize that this is in a legit direction or not. Or, there's obviously situations, especially early on, where you don't know what happened. And then people have their antennas come up and they think like, oh, this might be a racist type thing. That's fine. Again, but as you get the new information, you gotta be able to come to a logical conclusion. So as we look at this particular situation, much like, again, Deshaun Watson's situation, there has come to a point where we have enough evidence. We've already had enough evidence, but we have enough evidence with this to know that this is legit. So a couple things. So I just want to throw that out there first because that's not even going to enter the discussion. There's no room or very little room in this discussion for that whole, oh, he's a black man, it's a hit piece type stuff. We're not doing that. So a couple things to clear up. The biggest thing to clear up that people are being so, I won't say misguided, but just uninformed about. And that is that this was a criminal trial charged by the state of New York. And again, this is all to the best of my knowledge from what I've read. Again, not claiming expert, but that's what I've seen. This is a criminal trial charged by the state of New York, which I already understood because when it initially happened and she didn't press charges, which we all seen the text saying that she wasn't going to press charges. So when she did that, Jonathan Majors was still arrested, even though she didn't want to press charges because the police department said they had enough evidence where they wanted to charge because they could do that in the state of New York. So that tracks. That's not brand new news, but that's something that needs to be cleared up. This is not a civil case. The reason that that's important is because besides the burden of proof is higher, but outside of that, it's important because his ex-girlfriend Grace Jabari doesn't stand to gain anything from the court. So obviously, I think the closest situation you'll look at is Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. Very similar in a lot of ways. But even Deshaun Watson and other popular cases, most of the time these things are civil cases. This is someone suing somebody to say, I want this money or I want this from you because you did this. And that's, where people are obviously really quick to be like, they're just doing this to, get some money, ruin somebody's career, whatever. She did not bring this case to court. She is a witness in this case, obviously cooperating with the prosecution to prove the case. Now, the case is about her, but she did not, again, bring this case up. So that needs to be put out there, because some people have said, okay, well, we're going to dismiss this whole thing because this is obviously an ex-girlfriend that's jealous, that's trying to blah, 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 blah. She's not trying to do anything. The state of New York prosecuted him, and she agreed to participate in it. Now, before we even get to the verdict, again, what does she stand to gain by going up there because it's not like, oh, well, we're just going to look through Jonathan Major stuff. No, she knows that they're going to bring up evidence from her. They're going to go through her stuff. They're going to make her relive some of this stuff. And again, if you approach it with the, oh, I just don't believe her, I don't care, she's faking, whatever, then obviously you're not going to care. But if you approach it from a neutral point, as a respect for humans and some empathy, you know that nobody wants to go up there and relive a traumatic situation. And nobody wants to go up there and have their business exposed. Because much like the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard thing, in my opinion, and this was my opinion even before the verdict, this is just a case of two people being toxic towards each other and their business getting put out. And so while you have a whole bunch of people that come at the Amber Heard case and say, haha, Johnny Depp was innocent, no, and we'll get more into that. They've had actual proof of stuff they did. So this is pure internet. This is pure BS hiding behind the internet, because what everyone does is they wait for the verdict and that's all they talk about. Just like Deshaun Watson didn't even go to trial. Now, it is true that they whoever I forgot, it was the DA or whoever, said that they didn't feel they had enough evidence to go to court with it. And so, yeah, that is substantial, except you had the people, the police department that brought the case up in the first place, the initial one, they disagreed with that decision and they said they had plenty of evidence. So that's not usual, or at least not public. And so for me, you could debate that. But the rest of it, you can't debate. When you look at what was said in court, when you look at what was released publicly, like Deshaun Watson admitted to meeting over 70 some women for massages. He admitted that he was not, the primary reason for these massages was not therapeutic. He didn't care if they had credentials to be a masseuse. People skip over all that because they're like, again, there was no verdict in this, but they're like, well, he didn't get convicted. And so same thing with this. People are like, well, he didn't get convicted of these charges, so no, he's innocent. And it's like, you still, first of all, that's not true, but also you skipping over all the facts that came out in the trial. So as far as the charges, the conversation right now is he didn't get the heavier charges. He just got a misdemeanor or whatever. And so it's up to a maximum of a year in jail. I don't personally think he's going to go to jail. I don't think he'll see jail time, or I don't think he'll get a year. That I 100% don't think he'll get a year. But it doesn't matter if he gets no jail time or jail time. The difference is, again, as far as I understand in the state of New York, the way they have it, is because he had the 3rd degree reckless assault versus the 2nd degree or aggravated reckless assault and all that. The difference is the intent behind it. So he wasn't like premeditated. And again, this is domestic, but the charge could be anything. Like if you saw somebody on the street and you want to take their phone and you beat them up and took their phone and they got hurt, obviously you intended to do that. You planned on doing that. This wasn't planned. It was heat of the moment. I think of it a lot like murder and manslaughter. Like you premeditated it or it was a crime of passion, whatever. I think of it like that. Either way, you did it. So it is a lesser degree, but that doesn't mean you didn't do anything. And that's how people are trying to sweep it under the rug. He didn't do anything because the heavier charges were dropped. That's not the entire truth of it. First, it's 2 out of 4 counts. And again, you look at it, or I look at it with the evidence and I say, she was toxic. He also was toxic. Now, the key part to it is that this is where it gets messy. And I've come to appreciate this conversation more. It gets messy because when you're talking about the court of law, you are looking at a specific incident, especially when it comes to crime. You're looking at a specific incident. There's going to be evidence for background information. There's going to be evidence to establish a pattern of behavior, but you're looking at the verdict is about this incident. Did you do this on that day in March? Not, are you an abuser or anything like that? And even to a certain extent in civil court, you really are looking at specific incidents. But the court of public opinion is not looking at a specific incident. They're looking at you as a character. What is your character? Not a character, but they're looking at your character. And so that is really where things get muddy, because again, people will take a verdict and say, guilty of this, he must be this, he must be this, he must be that. Or not guilty, he's completely innocent, he never did XYZ. And that's just because people want to make things simple. It's much like anything. Like people say, oh, I'm hurt, disappointed at this person or this star or my celebrity, they did this. And that's because you admire work. So if you admire somebody's work, and let's just say Beyonce or Taylor Swift, you love Beyonce, you love Taylor Swift, and they do something personally that has nothing to do with their music, you're like, oh my God, that's because you build them up to have a certain character, even though that has nothing to do with the product that you like. You like the product, but since you like the product, you associate that with them having to be a great person. Then you find out, oh crap, they human and they do crappy things. So that's similar with the court of public opinion. People are going to look at it and say, they're going to make judgments about your character because they're not looking at one specific incident. They're trying to see what you're into because they don't know these people. You don't know most people in the world, obviously, but you definitely don't know these celebrities, and you're interested into knowing. So a perfect example is Trevor Bauer, I believe his name, MLB player, went through a whole scandal, ended up getting kicked off team and all that. Basically a domestic violence thing with this woman that he was having sex with. Now, what ends up happening is that the charges were dropped because essentially this was a consensual kinky thing where they were both consenting to get physical and to take it to an extreme, and that exists out in the world. That's how some people get down. So despite the fact that all the charges was dropped, the team still didn't want him, let him go, and there's a lot of teams that won't sign him. And yes, you were innocent in a court of law. The person said you did XYZ to me criminally and or whatever, and they said no, that's not what he did. But people are like, well, okay, yeah, but you still into some stuff that I don't agree with, so now I look at you different. That's the court of public opinion. That's how it goes. So it doesn't matter if today they said Jonathan Majors is not guilty on any of the charges. For me personally, I'm still looking at him different because I do appreciate the court of public opinion. I do think you could take it to the extremes both ways, obviously, but I appreciate I appreciate that the court of public opinion is real, and I appreciate the part it can play because we are human. That is natural. And I don't think it's wrong to find out something about somebody and feel differently about them. Now, how you come into it, that's on you. So if you come into it like, oh my God, this person is so great, again, because you don't know them and you like something they made and you equated that to their whole personality, that's on you. That's on you. Now, if you do your research and you say, okay, I know for a fact this person does X, Y, Z, they said this, they blah, 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 plus they make this good product. Like, I have other reasons. I've had a conversation with them. I work with them. Like, they help me out, like, and, you know, bless my family with some money or something, or help me through a situation, or they're best friends with one of my family members and I heard great. Like, if you did the research and you came into it like that, that's one thing, but a lot of people don't. They're just a celebrity that did something they like, so they think they're a great person. They find out that's different, and now they take it hard. Like, for me, I like Jonathan Majors as an actor. I think he's a great actor. Am I destroyed by this? No, I'm not. Slightly disappointed, but I don't know him. Like, for him to sit here and say he's a great man and he's doing great things and all that, I can't be like, oh my God, not Jonathan Majors. I don't know him. So that just depends on how you come into it and how you take, you know, the news. But again, I appreciate the court of public opinion, but it does make it messy because people get too confused on and trying to mix the two things together. And again, it's like, bro, you have to understand, the court is not looking at it the way that the public is, and they mix those two together. So to sit here and say again, oh, they dropped 2 charges, or he's found not guilty on 2 charges, so that means all of this. No, it doesn't. And even again, if he was found not guilty on all the charges, that doesn't erase the stuff that we know has happened. So that's all of that. My opinion on it, which is obviously what we're here to talk about, I felt very early on that this was an issue. So the things that the way that I got to this conclusion is the initial incident happens, and I was very skeptical, very little information, we don't know what's going on. But then Jonathan Majors' lawyer, she decides to release some text, thinking that this shows Jonathan Majors is completely innocent. when in actuality it did the exact opposite, especially for me. So the text is basically her saying how she's not going to press charges. She told him that he didn't do anything and that she's going to make sure he's good and all this other stuff. So you read this, and especially anybody that's worked in social, I wouldn't say social environments, but human services. So if you're an educator, you work with kids, or you're a nurse, or you're a counselor or a social worker, those types of things. You've been around people in these situations and you know how the conversations are. And to me and a lot of other people, it screamed, this girl is in an abusive relationship. Like, it's clearly a toxic relationship where she's trying to cover for him. So the lawyer released those texts thinking that it was going to get everybody on Jonathan's side. It did not. And again, the department decided to press charges even though she didn't want to press charges. And again, I was like, man, that's kind of messed up, man. I don't know about that. That don't make sense to me. But then you get these texts and it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe there's something there. Then time goes on and they motion to have the case dismissed. And a jury or a court independent of the police department says, no, there's enough evidence here to continue on. And there's enough evidence where we're not sealing the records. That was the second big thing. You had the text showing her basically, I wouldn't say begging or pleading, but she's just like groveling, saying, I'm not going to turn you in. I'm not going to I'm told on, she's trying to be part of the team. And that shows somebody that's scared to get cut off or scared of whatever the repercussions might be. Second red flag is Jonathan Majors' team asked to have the file sealed. So you go into court. They already said you're going to court. And now you're trying to get the file sealed from the public. And then not only that, the lawyer literally said the reason was, we feel like if this got out to the public, that'll hurt. She said it would hurt his chances to have a fair trial, which I don't understand because the jury's going to see it. I don't understand what the public has to do with it. And so that didn't even make sense. All that sounded was like, we don't want this to get out to the public and ruin his reputation. That was red flag number 2. Then you get the text from before where, again, she's basically saying, or no, not even her. He's saying, don't go to the hospital. They're going to ask questions and blah, blah, blah. And again, manipulation, coercion. So there's that. Those are my big red flags. And so I pretty much before the verdict was like, yeah, this is two toxic people. And so you get to the point where we are now, where at least I would say the quote unquote facts are out. And so the thing is, you get the video where he's pushing her back into the car, and then they get out, then he pushes away from her and takes off. So naturally you have some people like, well, an abused person isn't chasing their attacker. And it's always a tricky thing because you always have people that never been in those situations that try to say what people will do. And then even if you were in certain situations, you aren't the same as this person. But that's a natural reaction. Okay. And I was like, okay, this looks weird. But you watch it, I'm like, he's not sprinting. Everybody's talking about he had to haul, to get away from. No, he was not. He was jogging. He was glorified jogging. Like, Jonathan Majors is a built dude. We know that. Like, he just got built for this upcoming roles that he had. And he was already kind of built. Like, he could run if he really wanted to run. Like, neither one of them were sprinting. And so that was my first thing. So then it's like, okay, yeah, he could be trying to get away from the situation. She's being toxic, he's trying to get away. You could say he's trying to get away because he doesn't want her to get his phone again and have any proof. He wants to get away so he could delete it, which pretty much what she said. She was chasing him to see what was on the phone. And you got, I mean, obviously, first of all, I'm not going to generalize. Yes, he's much bigger than her and all that. So that doesn't mean he couldn't have been scared of an altercation. Most people say, oh, dude is huge, he's not going to get hurt by her. You don't know what she got or what she's capable of, so it's possible. But all in all, you look at that, and some people was like, well, case closed, he's innocent. Nah, I think that's a little bit too far of a stretch. We don't know fully what's going on, but what I do know from that is that it wasn't a I'm in danger type of run. That I don't agree with at all. It just more like I'm trying to get away from this situation. Okay, so there was claims that she was partying afterwards. She said that she met 3 strangers trying to get help after the incident, and they were late to a party, going to a party, and so she went with them because basically she was afraid if Jonathan come back, she wanted to be around some people. Yeah, okay, you could take it how you want to take it, cool. And then there was discussion in which, or not discussion, but a phone call, I believe the next day, in which Jonathan Majors called the cops after he had got locked out apartment, had the handyman let him in. He came in the apartment and his girl, or Grace, was unconscious or something like that. There's body cam footage and conflicting discussions about that. So again, all in all, when you look at what they were looking at, which is that night, it seemed there was an altercation because of a text message on his phone about how I wish I was kissing you, some other stuff. Something that shows that he could possibly be cheating, flirting with another woman. Set Grace off. She wanted to get the phone. He didn't want her to have the phone. Altercation from there. There you go. Things escalated. And so, again, you look at the decision the jury reached, in which they said this was not premeditated. This was not the intent, essentially, because then it would have been aggravated. It would have been, aggravated reckless assault, all those different things. But you still did it. Now, again, the stuff from the past is just to establish a pattern of behavior. And I think for me, through the evidence, is very clear of the pattern of behavior from both of them. And so that's how I come down on it. I just think it's, much like the Amber Heard thing, like I said, is an unfortunate situation, 2 toxic people. Now, the way that people jumped onto the Johnny Depp situation was disgusting, because you have, and again, I really don't even know what to call them just yet. I don't have a proper term, but I like to say the He-Man woman haters, where you just have these group of men online, or a large group of men online, that will attack anything that is coming from a woman. And again, on certain levels, I understand it. There's men that feel there's double standards, and there are. And then there's, essentially, to be honest, I just thought about this. It's a reaction to the Me Too movement and the Believe Women. And so now it's like there might be a threat that even if I'm completely innocent, I'm going to be guilty until proven innocent, instead of the other way around. And again, like I said, on levels, I understand that as a man, but there's a difference between that and completely throwing out any probability that somebody might be telling truth, or even worse, fighting and rallying against anything that someone says because they're a woman versus a man in this situation. And that's what you get a lot of it. But like I said, when you get race and gender intersecting in a situation, you get a hot button, easily hot button topic. So again, you got people who are black men or people that are just black in general, like, oh, he's black, yeah, he was gonna get screwed. And again, for me, I think you just look at the evidence produced, you looked at how everything kind of proceeded, and for me, I think the verdict and what was laid out goes together pretty naturally. And so that's my thoughts on it anyway. So all right, so that's it for me. Go down in the comment section, let me know what you think, share around, get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you for listening.